What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fancast Live podcast. I'm Giancarlo. I'm your host. Today, I got a special guest on the air with me. He's gonna join us by phone. His name is Jamie Hollywood Barrett, and today we're gonna be talking about Yankees and Rangers. Jamie, you're on the line, right?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Getting through another week. We got the Rangers playoff push heating up. We got some interesting things to talk about with the Yankees. So looking to get this thing going. How you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, brother. I'm doing really, really good. All right, so we spoke via text the other day, and we were talking about going back and forth about the Rangers and what we thought was going to happen at the trade deadline, and not a whole lot happened. I mean, there was one move where defenseman Brady Shea went to the Hurricanes for a number one draft pick for 2020. That was awesome. I thought that was good. Now it all depends on which number one pick the Hurricanes sent to the Rangers, because they do have two. One that's coming from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the other one of their own. So I think the way it's going to happen is they're gonna decide at the end of the season which one they're going to end up sending to the Rangers. I thought that was a good move for the Rangers to unload some salary. Brady Shea was probably expendable because of the fact that, you know, quite evidently the Rangers have they're loaded on defense. Brady Shea, or I'm pretty sure they tried to move Mark Stahl. I know they wanted to try to move Mark Stahl, but they weren't able to do that. I think he's got like 1 year left on his contract, where I think his base salary I think is 1.2 million for his final season, but there's a $3 million signing bonus. So they tried to move that, but they weren't able to do that. So that was good. Then you had the Chris Kreider extension, 7 years. I think it's approximately $6.5 million.
Hmm.
Um, Me and you talked about that a lot. We thought that was I really didn't think it was going to happen. I know you thought it was going to. How do you feel about those two moves the Rangers made?
So yeah, I mean the Rangers were a lot of this. This has really transpired because of the way Chris Kreider has performed this year. This was a make or break contract season, and the last 35, 40 games, Kreider has really shown his value not just this year but for the future. I think one of the reasons why they would keep him is because they are so confident, as you alluded to earlier, of the defensive depth coming up in the pipeline. So I still am surprised. I think if the Rangers weren't this close to making the playoffs, I think that Kreider could have been moved, and they could have pulled a Aroldis Chapman Yankee move where you get assets now and then try to re-sign them again next year.
Right.
I think Chris Kreider didn't want to play anywhere else. I think that was pretty obvious. It's just obvious by his body language and just the way he's come up through the organization. Hockey players tend to be a little bit more loyal. It's just the way the sport is. I think in terms of the money, it looks like Kreider has, I think, 3 or 4 years protected. And then I think after that, the Rangers could, if they had to, they would have the flexibility to move him. 6.5 million annual is a shade under what he probably would have gotten on the open market. The Rangers' big point of contention, Giancarlo, was the 7 years. They wanted to go six
Yeah, I know
and give him what he
exactly.
wanted, but he got seven. They came down to 6.5. So on paper, if we just left that move, it is a risky move, but you got to credit Jeff Gordon and you got to credit John Davidson because they were able to finagle away to get Brady Shea off the books at 5.5 million. So
Right.
you're essentially really only getting hit for 1.5 million. Next year you got some movable parts that you can probably move fast. The Buchneviches, we talked about Stahl and Lundqvist, they might buy out. So I think the Rangers scored very well with their deadline moves. I mean, Chris Kreider was the premier player at the deadline. It wasn't even close. And the Rangers had got to keep him. And I think one thing the Rangers really thought about was speed. The speed that Chris Kreider brings, it's not just the goals and putting in the easy chip shots in front. It's not just taking the body. It's the disruption in the offensive zone that he creates. and he makes space for a lot of other players. So overall, I think the Rangers did as well as you could. I'm a little bit surprised that they signed him now. I thought that they would have maybe got assets now and then re-signed him in the future. But it's definitely encouraging, and Ranger fans are pretty excited about it.
All right, sorry about that, guys. Having some type of technical difficulties here with my board here. Hopefully I didn't lose any of you guys. Jamie, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right, so we were in the middle of having a discussion about Chris Kreider's extension, 7 years, $6.5 million. My feeling is that if the Rangers had been 8 to 10 points out of a playoff spot, I think that the Rangers do make a trade for Chris Kreider where they could probably potentially load up on some draft picks, a possible number one and maybe a number two, and maybe even a player off a team's roster or maybe in the minors somewhere. I think the Rangers probably would have been either way. The Rangers would have done well with this.
Oh, sure.
But I feel like the Rangers did the right thing signing Kreider to the extension. Without Kreider, these guys don't make the playoffs. Am I right or am I wrong?
So that's interesting. I think it would be a lot harder because the Rangers rely so heavily on their power play to, get them through the games where they have lapses. The Rangers are a very young team, youngest team in the league. Losing a key cog like that, a guy that can log minutes, do the dirty work in front, disrupt the defensive zone with speed. You can't replace that. And I think that was part of the thought process, too, with keeping him, is that you're not going to replace his skill set. So I would agree. I think it would be very challenging to make the playoffs, although I think when you have Artemi Panarin and Zibanejad, I guess anything's possible, but Kreider certainly improves the chances, no question about it.
Yeah, no doubt. The other two players who were mentioned to be on the move at the trade deadline, I already named one of them, Mark Stahl. The other one would be Jesper Fast. These are two players that the Rangers would have loved to have dumped because of salary reasons. I mean, Mark Stahl is still a pretty good defensive player. Obviously, he's up there in age. The Rangers would love to dump that salary if they can. I think I agree with what you said earlier that they probably will end up buying him out. Lundqvist would probably be another casualty to that. Unfortunately, we'll get to Lundqvist in a second, but those two players don't move. They stay with the Rangers. It's all fine and dandy. I think eventually these players are probably not going to find themselves on a Rangers roster for 2021, 2022. I like the direction the team is going. I didn't quite like what happened with Elias Anderson. He was a player that we spoke about earlier in the season as being an up-and-coming player. He's no longer on the roster. He's in Europe now, playing in Europe. I have no idea what happened. Obviously his attitude was a big reason why he's no longer on his roster and he's playing elsewhere. I think he's on loan or something, is he?
Yeah, I think he's on loan right now to the Swedish league, and this tends to happen with European players. But he had high expectations. I just think that it was crowded at center. Hedl really kind of took the reins. I think Hedl did everything the coaches asked. He worked really hard. He went through some lulls, but he's been a very important player, and I think he just pretty much took the job from him. And, that happens in hockey. So there are times in hockey when first-round picks don't really materialize. And, I think the Rangers are still going to be fine without him. And I think Anderson at some point will maybe get another shot somewhere else.
And the irony that it was Philip Hedl who was sent down to the minors at the beginning of the season and not Elias Anderson. Because if you remember, Elias Anderson made the roster. Hedl was sent down. And we spoke and we said, what the hell is going on here? Why is Hedl going down to the minors and not Elias Anderson? Because, frankly, I would have thought Elias Anderson would have been the first one going down instead of Hedl. But you know what? In a way, it worked itself out. Hedl is back on a Rangers roster. I'm happy about that because I think he's a talented young player. There's a lot of talented young players on this team. I mean, let's look at this defense for a second. You got Tony D'Angelo. You got Adam Fox, who they got in a trade. Was it a trade that they got him in? I believe it was a
Well,
trade.
I think he had his rights. I think he was with another team. He had his rights. The Rangers pulled this off with Kevin Hayes, if you remember.
Right.
Hayes was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks,
Right.
and there's an option for these players if 3 years go by and you're not playing with the organization, you can, with some craftiness from your agent, there is a loophole where you can
Be
kind of be
released.
off of that
Yeah.
3 year
Yeah. The
status.
team.
So
The team officially loses rights to that player.
yeah, and it's interesting. The Rangers have been a popular destination for these types of players. So I think, Hayes kind of started it, and if Adam Fox, who from Long Island wanted to play here, he said, well, I can do it too. So I think Hayes, set the bar there, and I think Fox just said, well, if he did it, I can do it too. So
And he's turning into a tremendous player. I tell you,
yeah,
Adam Fox has been really. When the Rangers first signed him, I had no idea who this kid Adam Fox was.
yeah,
Knew nothing about him. I ain't even heard of him, and he's playing in just in preseason, and a lot of people were saying that he was going to make the team,
yep,
and rightfully so, because he had a good camp, and he had a good training camp, and he in preseason, and he makes a team, and look what he's done. He's done nothing but
yep,
perform. I mean, he's regarded as an offensive defenseman, but you look at his play lately, he's been playing really good defense, especially in front of his own net. What do you think about that?
100%, 100%. And you got to credit the Rangers scouting. I mean, Jeff Gorton, when for a long, long time, the Rangers were competitive. They took a look at the Eastern Conference and said, we need to blow up this team and make changes. And it wasn't easy to swallow at first, but you got to credit the Rangers and their scouting. They do a really good job of evaluating talent and seeing who's going to be a good fit. Tony D'Angelo was a trade for Derek Stepan. Stepan was a contract the Rangers wanted to move, and they were able to get D'Angelo out of it. And, we're getting him for peanuts, and he's one of the highest scoring defensemen in the league. And Fox is a leader in points for rookie defensemen, and he's a good player as well. And the Rangers defense have a lot to be encouraged about. I know you'll probably get to Ryan Lindgren. I mean, if he doesn't remind you of Jeff Bukaboom, I don't know what does, because Lindgren's another kid that's
Another
raw,
tough player.
very talented.
I mean,
and
he
he plays a nasty game.
Yeah, oh yeah,
The Rangers need that, and they have lacked that on defense
absolutely,
for quite some time.
absolutely. Let's talk about some of the forwards. I mean,
Oh yeah,
Artemi Panarin comes to the New York Rangers, signs as a free agent. He wanted to be here. This is where he wanted to be. He signs with the Rangers. He probably signed for a little less money than he would have if he would have went somewhere else. He's got 32 goals on the season. He leads the team in points, I think, with 80 something, 85, I think it is.
yeah, he's got 85 points.
Listen,
Yep.
Artemi Panarin is unlike so many of the other free agents who have come and worn a Rangers jersey. Am I right or am I wrong? Because this guy has worked out. He's worked out, and unlike the other players in the past who haven't worked out, this kid has just come in here and I think he's hit a career high in goals with 32,
Yes.
and he's not done yet. He's not done yet. I mean, he could potentially score 100 points this year, and I wasn't expecting it because me and you spoke about this earlier in the season. And well, actually, when Panarin was still a free agent, and we compared him a lot to none other than Chris Kreider. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
We thought that they were similar players, and and we were discussing whether or not the Rangers were going to keep both Chris Kreider because of the fact that he was a similar player to Panarin. And fortunately for the Rangers, they're going to keep both of them. Another guy, I mean, Mika Zibanejad.
Yep.
The trade with Ottawa for Derek Brassard.
Oh yeah,
dude. I mean, I think about that trade, and I was heartbroken when Derek Brassard went to Ottawa in that trade. But when you, and I'm pretty sure you can relate to what I'm going to say. When I looked at Zibanejad, his age and his upside, I started to think to myself, this might be a really good trade, even though I really didn't know too much about Mika Zibanejad because I really don't follow the Ottawa Senators, and I really didn't know much about him. But he has turned out to be a superb player who I think is probably going to be wearing the C, if not this season, definitely next season.
Yeah, certainly in the conversation for the C, and Kreider is going to be in the mix as well. But I mean, let's just go down the list. I mean, Artemi Panarin, like we've talked about this before. I mean, how many times people go to the Rangers, and whether it's Marian Gaborik, Rick Nash, Scott Gomez, Chris Drury, offense, defense, you just never expected the points to be the same. There was always that, that, I guess, that cynical mentality as a Rangers fan. Panarin's been delivering. I mean, he's had 4 70-point seasons to start his career. He's been almost a point per game guy. He was an undisputed leader of the Blue Jackets last year. He brought a team that was very scrappy, defensive minded, and he was a force for them, and they swept the Lightning. This guy's a big time player. He does not and when the moment gets big, he plays bigger. I'll give you an example. The other night against the Islanders, he didn't have the best, game, but he just hung in there, made some plays. He buried a shot early in the game, but in overtime, turns on the acceleration, draws 3 guys, the puck gets lost, and he's able to somehow make a play to get it to Mika Zibanejad. Artemi Panarin is so easy to like this guy because he hustles. He doesn't just coast out there. He's a superstar. He's 3rd in the league in scoring right now. He will clear 100 points. He's going to have career highs in every category. And this guy is the consummate pro, and he is a guy that's going to be a leader on this team, and the Rangers should be very excited. Mika Zibanejad I remember watching him for Ottawa against the Rangers. He always just seemed to have a big presence on the ice, not as much hair as he does now. That's definitely grown out over the years, but he's just gotten better and better each year. He's not just an offensive power play guy, but he plays both ends of the ice. He is just setting up teammates so well. He's good. He's just really good in any situation, a penalty kill, power play, whatever you need. The guy's having a career year. He was also hurt for 12 games. He's going to be on pace for like over 80 points as well. So we've talked about this last year and years past, how the Rangers always had good players, top to bottom, but never cracked 70, 80, 90 points. The Rangers will have 2 guys this year. And if you have 2 guys that are putting up points like that, over a point per game clip, you have something going in terms of making a playoff and making a serious run. So that's definitely the 2 things that I take away. These 2 guys are going to be the 2 stars that you're going to build this young team around, and it's just it's really cool to see.
Yeah, now you can add Chris Kreider because he's going to be here for 7 years. Well, at least we feel he's going to be here for 7 years. So I mean,
gotta get that sound going.
My sound isn't gone again. Hello?
Gotta get that sound going.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yep.
I don't know. Every time I touch the wires, something goes wrong. So I apologize for that. So
Yep.
all right. So Chris Kreider is definitely a part of that nucleus of the team. A lot of young stars up and coming. Capo Caco was drafted number 2 last year by the Rangers. He's going to be an upcoming star. He's still only 19 years old. He just turned 19, I think, last month or so. So, I mean, there's a lot of talent on his team right now. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the goaltending. We heard that Buchnevich and Shesterkin were involved in a car accident the other night. Shesterkin gets he's got a fracture in one of his ribs. He's probably going to be out probably a month, I would think.
Yeah.
Buchnevich, I believe, was day to day. I don't even know if he's in the lineup tonight. Do you even know if he's in the lineup tonight?
He's not in the lineup.
He's
tonight.
not. I know they were losing 1-0 so far to the Montreal Canadiens. So, that's something to keep an eye on. But Shesterkin comes up. He's 9-1 now. Georgiev has performed at times at a top level. Lundqvist, on the other hand, has been very un-Lundqvist-like. He's lost a step. I don't know if it's the age. Many times I think to myself, well, Lundqvist probably has his issues because defense has been bad, and I kept pointing, the finger at the defense. And now when you look at guys like Georgiev and Shesterkin, you think to yourself, you're like, well, maybe it wasn't the defense, maybe it is Lundqvist that's lost a step here.
Hmm.
How do you feel about this? Because I really love Lundqvist. He's done so much for this team. I feel like he wants to be here to win a championship, the Stanley Cup, but it's time for him to step aside because of the fact that there's two young goaltenders now who are very capable of either one being number ones.
Hmm.
What's your take on Lundqvist?
So no, that's a good point. And in New York sports fans, it's the Eli Manning effect. It's the offensive line. It's they don't have the pass rush, and then when you actually take Eli Manning out of the equation and you see, wow, there could be another way to do this. That's kind of what happened with Lundqvist, and I think you got to credit. John Davidson came in this year and he said, look, we're going to reevaluate every position. And Lundqvist, for a long time with management and with the team, ran the show. He was very vocal in the locker room. He was always taking questions. And you remember there's been plenty of years with the Rangers where, Lundqvist would have to call out his teammates. And that was fine. And we all were okay with it because he was so dominant. And he's a Hall of Fame goaltender. And that's not going to be taken away from him. And a great playoff performer as well. There's a lot of statistics in the playoffs that are very impressive with Lundqvist, but his time has come. And I think in the NHL, it's a very humbling game, and a lot of these goalies are different than Lundqvist because they can handle the puck, and Lundqvist has never been a puck handler. One thing you notice about Shesterkin is he's a supreme puck handler. I mean, this guy is involved on the offense. He's doing sauce passes out of the zone. He's protecting the puck from forecheckers. He's making passes and plays on the power play to keep the rush going. These are the little things that create chances in games that Lundqvist is just not able to do. And Lundqvist has been beat on some bad goals. I mean, throughout his career, Lundqvist has been known to let up the softie, but now it's happening a little bit more. And luckily for the Rangers, they had Georgiev step up. If it wasn't for Georgiev weathering the storm a little bit when Lundqvist wasn't well, the Rangers would not be in this position. As far as Shesterkin, he is the undisputed number one. He's 9-1. He's athletic. He makes plays. The fans are really behind him. He's the number one starter for the Rangers next year going forward, and that's really just that is set in stone. Georgiev, to me, he looks like a guy that might be in the expansion draft. I don't think the Rangers will be able to
I don't
keep
think
him.
so. I got to disagree with you because I think the Rangers just prior to the deadline they made a trade with Philadelphia for Berube, a goaltender from Philadelphia, and I think the reason why they made that move was to protect the likes of Georgiev and Lundqvist in the expansion draft.
I guess that's possible. We'll see how it plays out. The expansion rules. It's interesting when it happened with Vegas. I think they took what's his name, Oscar Lindbergh from us. So I got to figure out exactly how that works. I don't know if the kid from Philly would be eligible. I think you have to have a certain number of games to be eligible, and I don't know if that kid has it yet. I could be wrong, so we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, there's something about them being on. I don't think they have to be on the NHL roster in order to be protected or unprotected. They do have to be. I believe they have to be in the minors at least, and I think
Okay.
that's where they sent this kid Berube. I don't know anything about him. I just saw a headline that the Rangers had made this deal, and that it would be possible that they might unprotect him for the expansion draft.
Well, that would be a smart move then. I think Georgiev, eventually he's going to hit arbitration. He's going to be an RFA. So I would imagine if Georgiev plays well down the stretch here, there's going to be a team out there that will probably pay him. So I don't know. I don't see Georgiev being a long-term Ranger. I'm going to say that right now. I think Lundqvist could be welcomed back as a backup, but he's also making a lot of money, and the Rangers have to create some space. They have to save money for Mika in 2 years, and they have to, make sure they have, other players sign like D'Angelo. So that's going to be a tough situation. It's tough. It's tough to watch, but it's sports. It's just going to happen.
I think this whole Lundqvist thing is probably have a lot to do with him going out into the sunset with dignity. I think that's what
Hmm.
the Rangers organization is really considering. They don't want to just like buy him out in the middle of the season. They don't want to just cut him. They don't want to just trade him. They want him to go out into the sunset with some dignity. And I think this is what's going on here. I think that the Rangers are trying to be, um, what the hell is the word I'm looking for? They want to just show some class
Yeah,
by allowing Lundqvist to stay on as long as they could possibly keep him. But I do agree with you. His time is up, and he needs to realize that in some shape, some way, shape, or form.
yeah,
And the Rangers need to move on. It's just gotten to that point. So
yep. That's
I
true. He's a
definitely do
stubborn
see
guy. Yep.
I definitely do see them possibly buying him out at the end of the season as well as Mark Stahl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many players you can buy out, but I mean, Lundqvist is very stubborn. I mean, he's had opportunities throughout his career. We talked about this
Right.
before when Cam Talbot was having a great year and Antti Ranta was having a good year. The Rangers said, "Hey, we're going to throw you a lifeline. You want to go to a contender?" And he's really been adamant and said no, he does not want to do that. And I think Lundqvist, I think now might have buyer's remorse on that because he wants to play. I mean, one thing about Lundqvist, as we know, he's a competitor. He wants to play. He's not done playing. And I think now, I heard a few days ago he has been speaking to management. So he has been speaking to Gorton, Davidson, and company. They have had conversations around the trade deadline. So I'm sure they didn't ask him to add salt to the wound. All right, well, do you want to go to a contender? I think that was probably not on the table. But I did think they were discussing future plans. Lundqvist is not going to play another game for the Rangers unless, Georgiev has a slip up and the Rangers need to, give Georgiev some load management before Shesterkin gets back. Um, it's a tough thing to say, but I think there has to be a team out there that would be that would take him for a 1-year deal, a couple $1,000,000, and put him in. But in order for that to happen, the Rangers will buy him out, and I think that's the consensus on what is going to happen. From what I've been hearing, it's probably going to be Lundqvist just because they do have good goalie prospects in the pipeline.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the Rangers have approached them every season for probably the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. At the trade deadline, they've approached them and said, "Hey, listen, we've got teams interested in you. They're interested in knowing if you want to come play for them." And they've left that door open for Lundqvist to either accept or decline. And unfortunately for the Rangers, he's declined every time. But I agree. He's had his opportunities to go elsewhere to try to win somewhere else, and he hasn't taken it. And that's shame on him. But it is what it is. Um, so let's keep moving on because I know you got to get off soon. We've got probably another 20 minutes. Let's talk some Yankees. I know you wanted to talk some Yankees. Um, the Yankees obviously went and made the big signing, bringing in Garrett Cole in the offseason to be your number one. Going into spring training, your rotation was pretty set. You had Garrett Cole, James Paxton, Tanaka,
Severino.
yeah, Severino, and a combination of Montgomery, Herman when he comes back from suspension. But the injury bug has hit the Yankees once again, and
Mm-hmm.
it's becoming frustrating. I mean, you're a Yankee fan, I'm not, but I follow, and it's got to be frustrating because as a Mets
Yes.
fan, we've had this happen to the Mets many a times. But last year you had, I believe, 30 players hit the injured list at one point or another during the course of the season.
Yep.
This year, you already got hit by the injury bug with James Paxton coming into spring training with back surgery. Then you get Severino with Tommy John surgery. You still have Domingo Herman out 63 games to finish up his 80-game suspension from last season for domestic abuse
Mm-hmm.
policy reasons. Um, then you get Giancarlo Stanton. I think yesterday go down with a
a strained calf. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just come on. It's very frustrating. It's annoying. You want to get excited about the baseball season. It's end of February. We got to deal with this this crap again. It's frustrating. I mean, the good news is that Judge is healthy, and that's
is he?
and
Because
that's
he's
just
out. He's he's got a shoulder, a barking right shoulder. That was what they're calling it. He hasn't swung a bat in over a week or two. Actually, I don't think he's swung a bat all spring since the teams have come in. Am
well,
I right
I
or am I
guess he's
wrong?
not healthy. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, it seems like there's something new that keeps happening. We did the Garrett Cole signing is definitely going to help us in
Without a
terms of
doubt.
kind of weathering
But
the
it's
storm a little
one
bit.
giant leap forward and two steps back here. Because
Yeah,
you lose Paxton, you lose Severino, you don't have Herman until probably close to the All-Star break. I mean, these guys, Paxton and Herman are going to be back. There's no doubt. Now the question is Garrett Cole going to hold down the fort until these guys get back? Because quite frankly, other than the Tampa Bay Rays in the East, I don't think anybody's going to be very good. So the Yankees should feel comfortable with what they're going into in the season with the rotation that they have. I mean, whoever it's going to be in a rotation, you got Cole Tanaka. Happ has had two pretty good spring training starts the last two outings. He's looking good. Then you got Jordan Montgomery, you got Davy Garcia, you got Jonathan Loaizaga. You can also throw Chad Green out there as an opener because he did open 15 times for the Yankees last year. And then you guys still have Luis Cessa and his guy Mike King. I have no idea who he is, and they're all being thrown in the mix now. Whether who are those five guys? Obviously Cole, Tanaka, and Happ are going to be the top three. Now it's these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that you have left are going to be your 4 and 5, and I'm sure they're going to use a combination of an
yeah,
assortment of those guys because I don't think you can rely on one of those because Jordan Montgomery is coming off um, some kind of surgery. I forget what he was out for last season. He didn't play very much last year.
yeah. You didn't see him
Severino
much.
didn't come back until the end of the season. He's out for the season. Paxton. I mean, there was a lot of talk about the Yankees um, changing their medical staff because of for the very exact reason of why Paxton is out right now. Because Paxton started feeling this pain in his back last season in the postseason, and nothing was done about it. And here he comes a week before spring training, 2 weeks before spring training, and he's going in under the knife to get surgery done to get rid of some kind of cyst in his back. It's like this is not supposed to be happening 2 weeks going into spring training.
Yeah,
And then you got Severino, who again had this soreness in his forearm last season when he came back. He was experiencing the soreness last year, and the staff did nothing about it. And here he is going up to New York, getting some tests done, and sure enough, he's got to get Tommy John surgery. I mean,
it's
I feel your pain, dude, but this has to be frustrating. Now, the Yankees are at the beginning of the season when they signed Garrett Cole were the high favorites to win the World Series. Now they've fallen off. They're no longer the top pick. Now the Dodgers have taken over as a top World Series contenders. But what do you got to say about all this? You're a Yankee fan. I got to hear what you got to say.
yeah, it's frustrating as hell. In terms of, I still think you touched on this earlier. The division is more, it's more achievable this year, especially with what's happened to Boston. They unloaded Mookie Betts. They're not going to be as competitive. That's a big part of their lineup. They're going through a lot of changes. New manager. That's going to be tough. The Red Sox will be scrappy. They'll be a tough out, but the Orioles are bad. The Blue Jays are, they're hanging on by a thread. They've lost a lot of pitching. And the Rays, as talented and as well managed as they are, they don't have the horses, I think, to really give the Yankees a true charge. At the end of the day, the Yankees, they still have an incredible lineup. Torres. They still got a lot of, LeMahieu. They still got a lot of guys that can make contact. You throw Andujar back in the fold. He can spray the ball around. So the Yankees will still score runs. They'll still hit home runs. They're not going to have as much starting depth, but I think that only matters when you get to the postseason. And quite frankly, I'm trying to look at the bigger picture. The season's 162 games. So is Severino there? He's not going to be there, but if Paxton can be fully healthy like he was going into the postseason last year, if the Yankees are in a position, they can make a move. They might have to unload somebody, but they might be able to acquire a starter at the deadline, and they might have to do that. And I'm okay with that too. I think Cashman has a lot of prospects and a lot of chips to play with. There's a lot of good talent that the Yankees have. Maybe even Clint Frazier goes. Maybe he decides to pull the trigger this year because he's one of these guys that he wants to keep forever. But so I think there's options on the table. The division is very winnable. Obviously, whenever you go into a baseball season, you want a full deck. As a Yankee fan, it just hasn't happened for that often. It's almost like we're used to this now. And because we had so much success last year with such an injury-ridden team, it's actually not as bad. We've actually been through this already. And as frustrating as it is, I'm more frustrated with Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, Severino, there's definitely some negligence there. It's just very odd to me. New York Yankees, one of the most prolific franchises in sports. I don't remember this type of negligent injury treatment ever. And I don't mean to single out anybody on the Yankee staff, but it's just really odd that it's just come so many times in a few years. And also you got Aaron Hicks that's going to be out for a while too. So, it's frustrating. But it's almost at the point where it's Sonny at the toll booth and The Godfather. It's like it's happened already. It's already dead. Like there's no point in getting more worked up over it than we've already had. So we'll throw out Garrett Cole. We'll see how far he can take us. But nothing like opening up a homestand with the Blue Jays and the Orioles, and you hope for a lot of those early in the season. And if the Yanks can get on a hot streak, it makes everybody else's life easier.
What is the irony that the two players that Brian Cashman signed last year to extensions to avoid arbitration, and those two guys are, you already named them, Aaron Hicks and Luis Severino. Would they sign 7-year deals, $10 million per?
Hicks was a man. Hicks is these baseball players make a lot of money, but Hicks was not, in my opinion, a bad contract from what I remember. I don't think it was an exorbitant amount. I think it was pretty fair. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Severino, did he get more? I guess because he is a pitcher. I would imagine so.
But the irony to me is the fact that they signed these extensions and they both have hardly played in 2019. One of them is probably not. Well, one of them is not going to play in 2020. Hicks is probably going to be in and out of the lineup due to injuries. He was out a couple of times last year. It's frustrating to see that because you lock these kids in to long-term deals to avoid arbitration because you think you're doing the right thing, and now it's come back to bite you in the ass. Not so much Severino, because I feel Severino's going to come back, and he's going to come back stronger than probably ever after the surgery. It's going to take some time, and it's going to be frustrating for him, probably mostly for him, because of the fact that he has to go through the rehab. He has to get back to health, and he has to get back in the lineup. But as far as Hicks is concerned, it's just strange how this guy signs an extension and all of a sudden he's always getting hurt. It's just it's frustrating for me, and I'm not even a fan, but it's just I just find it ironic that those two players keep getting injured the way that they are.
It's the Yankee fans are used to it now. You hate to see it. Honestly, though, I think the Yankee fan, if you ask them, they really need to see something from Stanton. Hicks, we've seen him in the past. We know he'll battle. But Stanton is the guy that is falling out of favor with the Yankee fans. he kind of seems like the black sheep of the team. I mean, the team is, for the most part, they get along well. It's a great group of guys. We love Booney. You can debate whether or not the managers in the postseason with the bullpen. That's all fair game. But if Stanton is healthy and ready to play, and if he can be anywhere near where he was with the Marlins, I mean, we're good. Like there's no, you can get around that if he can play at that MVP level. Because remember, all we need to do is get through most of the season. I anticipate the Yankees will probably have a 9-10 game lead at some point. The Rays nipping at the heels here and there. And then the Yankees will probably get a pitcher at the deadline. And then we, probably won't have the issue of starting pitching. But it really comes down to Stanton. If you ask every Yankee fan, it's going to come down to Stanton. We need to see him healthy and performing at a high level, because then there's going to be some angry people out there.
I think there are a lot of angry Yankee fans right now as far as Stanton is concerned, because there was an article in the New York Post. I don't know if it was yesterday or today or maybe the day before yesterday, and it pretty much talked about Giancarlo Stanton's trade and what they could have gotten instead. And two of those players that they could have gotten were Yelich from Miami instead of Giancarlo Stanton. And look at what Yelich has done since going to Milwaukee.
He's been one of the best players in the league.
Exactly. And then you got Ohtani, or whatever his name is.
It was Ozuna?
Yeah, the Japanese player who came from Japan, who signed with the Angels. Okay. Ohtani, I think, is his name.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right.
He's another player the Yankees could have had, but the only thing is Ohtani didn't have the Yankees as one of the final teams he wanted to go to. But I tell you, man, if they would to turn this around and redo this, I think Yelich would be the guy I would want.
No question.
Because I personally wanted the Mets to pursue a trade for Yelich when Giancarlo Stanton was being talked to the Yankees about. Because I was like, listen, if you guys want to get rid of your players, I want Yelich. I don't want Stanton. Because I feel that Yelich is a better hitter because he uses all fields and he can still hit for power, and he drives in a lot of runs. And we've seen that with Milwaukee the last couple of seasons. And Giancarlo Stanton, for the most part, he's always hurt. You know?
He's stiff. Giancarlo Stanton is these taller players. They're marbles to look at, and they're hit colossal home runs, but they break down. It's just when you have a guy like Brett Gardner, the guy is just he doesn't die. This guy, I mean, all he does is he gets his Bic razor, shaves his head, and just goes out and plays baseball. He doesn't. This guy's been doing this. He's had first when he came up, he couldn't hit. He sprayed the ball around, ran around, and then he's adapted his game to be a home run hitter now. He's been running around the outfield making plays for years, always overlooked, always underrated, and he never gets hurt. And he's a smaller player. These bigger MLB players, the long 162-game seasons and the offseason, that's my fear with Judge, is that, eventually that's going to happen to him too. But players break down. You're moving a lot of joints. There's a lot of blood circulating around, and it's really hit Stanton hard. So
and you're carrying around a lot of weight too.
Yelich, he's a hell of a player.
Oh, hell yeah.
He's something else.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to bring up is the other day Miguel Andujar played in left field. I thought that was pretty interesting. To be quite honest with you, I never even thought about him going to the outfield. But being that the Yankees always have injuries in the outfield with Judge and Hicks and Giancarlo Stanton, why not throw Miguel Andujar in the outfield? You might as well. I mean, this kid can hit. He's a hitter. Why would you trade this guy? I think it's a great idea that the Yankees are trying him out in the outfield. He looked pretty good out there. I took a peek and I looked at some of the highlights. He looked pretty good. He looked pretty comfortable. He says he played out in the outfield maybe 14, 15 years ago. But in the end, why not? Because if Cashman is really looking to move a guy like Clint Frazier, you're going to need some depth in the outfield, and why not Miguel Andujar, who can hit the cover off the ball in some big spots?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one thing about Andujar is he kind of reminds me of Vlad Guerrero. He just goes up there and hacks at it. He swings at a lot of pitches. but he puts the ball in play. And as a defensive outfielder against him, it's hard to read. You can't play the shift. You have to play him honest. And he's got some good athleticism. I think the one knock on him is obviously the infield. He was not a good third baseman, but you might as well see what he's got in the outfield. You really have nothing to lose. I think it's a very smart move. I think they're going to try him also at first base. I know that you'll probably get to that, but you got Voit coming back, but Andujar might be a decent first baseman. I'm sure he'll rotate other guys, but in terms of his value in hitting, other than Glaber and LeMahieu, the Yankees are very one-dimensional hitting for the most part. So having a guy like Andujar that can get a guy to score from first, get a triple here and there. He had a lot of triples that season. Yeah, I think he led the team in triples. He led the team in doubles, hit 291. You need a guy in the lineup that hits 295 and not 250 like you're going to get from the Gary Sanchez's of the world that are just not going to move guys over again on base. So any way you can get him in the lineup, I think is probably a plus at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So lineup wise, you just mentioned Luke Voigt's coming back. LeMahieu is probably going to be a backup at first base. He's probably going to be a backup in a lot of positions in the infield.
Yeah.
The question now is, what are the Yankees going to do with LeMahieu? Are they going to extend him? Are they going to not extend him? Or are they just like waiting it out to see what happens? Are they having some kind of discussions with his agent? I don't know. He's turned out to work out really good for the Yankees since signing the 2-year deal it was last year, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know the Yankees have a lot of players they're going to have to sign in the next few years. Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, um, and a bunch of other players that you're going to have to sign. It's going to be interesting, and I always say this. It's going to be interesting how the Yankees are going to be able to pay all these players, because if Giancarlo Stanton is still on the Yankees roster going forward into 2021, with Aaron Judge looking for possibly a $300 million contract himself, you're going to have three players on this Yankees roster possibly making over $1 billion.
Well, it would only happen in one place, and that's the Yankees. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think this is a big year for Sanchez. He's another guy that when he's hot, he's a premier hitter. I mean, there are not many catchers in this league that can hit like Giancarlo Stanton or like Gary Sanchez can hit. So that carries a lot of weight. It matters a lot to baseball, especially in the analytics. When you break down the books there, that's one of the things that they talk about is the very big importance of having a catcher that can get on base and can hit, because traditionally that is such a lacking position. But I don't think the Yankees are totally sold on Sanchez. I think they're going to wait out this year, but they're going to move guys around. They will listen to Giancarlo Stanton offers. But if I had to be a betting man, Judge is the guy. I mean, Judge is a leader in the clubhouse. He's the face of the franchise, and he's definitely staying. Unless Giancarlo Stanton hits 45 homers or 40 homers, hits above 275, over 100 ribbies, and gets on the fans' good graces, the Yankees will probably eat some of his contract and move him to another team. I think that's very much in the cards. And Gary Sanchez is another person as well who, although, as valuable as a hitting catcher is, we have seen Cashman in recent seasons be a little bit more frugal with spending, if you can even believe that. I mean, there have been instances where they have moved people. So I think that's how it will eventually play out. I don't see a scenario in a couple of years where we're talking and Giancarlo Stanton and Sanchez are both, still signed on the team, just simply because the Yankees have to, continue. They have to. Gleyber, Torres, and Judge, you might as well pin them as the highest paid player at their position, because that's what's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. So I think we're done here with the Yankees. But there's some things that I want to keep on baseball, And the biggest topic of conversation, obviously, this spring training has been the Houston Astros and the sign stealing scandal. Um, I truly believe that the Houston Astros went above the extreme in the way they cheated and the way they stole signs. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to them wearing gadgets, buzzers, or whatever the case may have been. And then there was also another article today where Garrett Cole was asked if the Houston Astros pitchers were cheating in one way or another by putting pine tar on their hands to get a better grip, to get a better spin on the ball. That's something else that's being looked at right now. But I think the league is going to not investigate it. They're just going around to spring training sites and telling teams, listen, if we catch you, the player is going to be ejected out of the game and they're going to get a 10-game suspension. So this is another thing that players are going to have to look for in the coming season. Um, I listen. The way that the Astros went about their business and the way they cheated in 2017, and I still believe they did it in 2018 and 2019. I don't care what they say.
Uh-huh.
Um, I personally feel they should have been stripped of the World Series title. Because I understand the commissioner gave them immunity for talking, and didn't give player suspensions, even though I feel Carlos Beltran got the bad end of the stick because he was a player. He was hired by the Mets to be their next manager, and now all of a sudden the guy is out there without a job because the commissioner made it a point to influence the Mets in firing him because of what they feel his involvement was with the Houston Astros sign stealing scandal. They thought he was the mastermind behind it. I don't believe that for one bit, but it's cheating. I think they should have been stripped. Those players, even though they didn't get suspended, they did get bonuses for making the World Series and winning the World Series. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think they came pretty hard on Beltran. But we really don't know his involvement. I know he, as an elder statesman, baseball player, I think it was just very disappointing. I think the Mets probably made that move out of just it's a disappointment. I think that they were misled. I would imagine the Mets have asked Beltran, and I'm sure the inside people in baseball probably brought this stuff up, and obviously he wasn't truthful about it. Nobody was on the team. I mean,
Well, from what I understand, the New York Mets ownership and front office met with the commissioner and his office in regard to the Beltran situation, and that's where I feel because to be quite honest with you, Beltran is a player. There's no need for the New York Mets front office and the ownership to meet with the commissioner if he was a player and he's not going to be suspended for any reason. Then there was no reason for them to meet with the commissioner in regard to what Beltran's involvement was, which led to his eventual firing. And I thought that was wrong. I just think it was wrong. If all players are going to get immunity, then Beltran, as a player in 2017, should have gotten immunity, should have kept his job, and that should have been the end of it. But it didn't quite work out that way, did it? But my take is I know a lot of people are talking about steroids back in 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever the case was, and they look at it, oh well, that was cheating. Yeah, but they still didn't know what was coming. They might have cheated to probably hit the ball out of the ballpark, but they still didn't know what was coming. No one was
yeah,
telling them that a curveball was coming. No one was telling them a fastball was coming. So
yeah,
that to me is different,
so
and
different.
it's
It's so
totally
different
different.
because the steroids. I mean, what you saw were players playing at their optimum potential, recovering from injuries very quickly, in ways that you see now the players don't do. So in some cases, the game was almost you got a lot more out of the players. But you're exactly right. Barry Bonds still has to hit a fastball. You still got to hit a curveball. You still got to hit the ball. Hitting a baseball is the
Not
hardest thing to
easy.
do in sports, I think.
Yep.
So you still got to do it. Now, I heard something that Clayton Kershaw in the World Series threw, I think, 77 breaking balls, and not one
Was swung at.
was a swing and a miss from the Astros. That is outstanding. I heard also that I think it was 2016 or 17. The Houston Astros struck out, I think, one of the highest rates in baseball, and in 1 year they decreased their strikeouts by an average of 2 per game. I mean, that is – when you look at the stats for the Astros last year, they led the league in walks. They had the highest average. They had the most – it's amazing a team can have all the statistics, and now it's really starting to make sense. I really feel bad for the Dodgers. I feel bad for I'm a Yankee fan.
The Dodgers, the Yankees. I mean, whoever was in that postseason that had to go through either Houston or that season, I feel bad for them. The Dodgers being one of them, the Yankees being the other. They lost in the ALCS. The Dodgers losing in the World Series. I mean, strip them the World Series.
Aroldis Chapman throws absolute gas, and Altuve knows it's coming.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's crazy. And they're gonna get it all season. I mean, the Yankees don't play the Astros, I don't think, till later in the season.
September.
Yeah, which I don't know if that was by design or not.
They don't play the Astros at home until September. Forget Houston.
I wonder why that.
Yeah,
baseball might have been throwing them a lifeline. But
yeah. They think that they think people are going to forget. They're not going to forget. Because all eyes are going to be on the Houston Astros players, especially their hitters, because everybody's going to be curious to see the difference in numbers from 2017, 18, and 19 to 2020. And I'm one of those guys because I want to see the difference in those numbers, because if there are any kind of difference in numbers between 18, 19, and 20, then you know for sure that they were cheating all 3 of those seasons, not just one.
You got to compound that with just how does it? I mean, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not involved, but it's just like these players are humans too. I mean, they got caught. All those guys, Altuve, Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman, the star nucleus of the team, they're all involved in this. And even to an extent, Garrett Cole. So, it's going to be interesting. These players will have to deal with vicious backlash from fans from all across baseball, and there's no way in hell that they're going to be just the same player. I mean, even if the players take a great approach, they practice, they do everything the right way, they're still good ball players, but they won't be the same no matter what. So not only will they not have the benefit of the sign stealing, which we'll see how much that really affects them, I think that just on sheer emotion and human nature, they're going to have a hard time. Every single game they go to that's away from Minute Maid Park is going to be out for blood in a way that we haven't seen in sports. And we've seen vicious rivalries with football and hockey and other sports, but this hits the fans at a personal level. And this is, for the true baseball fans out there, I can't imagine a situation where the Astros have, an easy road trip. Even if it's against a team that's not very good, they're going to have to deal with a lot. The Astros, to me, are in a lot of trouble. And they also lost their best pitcher. And I think the Astros are a team, I don't know if they make it out of the West. I think the Angels, the Rangers, they're probably going to be on the rise. I just think Houston – I mean, if Houston ends up winning 90 to 100 games and
I'd be shocked. I'd be totally shocked if they win 100 games.
If they win 90, 95 games and they make the playoffs, I would have to say that would be an unbelievable coaching job by whoever is their manager.
Dusty Baker.
To Dusty Baker to get them to do that, because, I mean, these players, I mean, as bad as they were and as bad as the cheating is, these guys have families, they got to move on. And, they got to suit up and put the uniform on and go out and play. And that's just going to be the interesting thing, is how they just endure this season. I mean, this is a season that, we're probably going to remember forever.
Well, it's definitely going to be a season they definitely remember because it's going to be a long freaking season for them. That's for sure.
Yep.
But it's funny. The irony was the other day I was watching some highlights from the spring training games, and I forget who was playing the Houston Astros, but there were representatives from the stadium where they were playing at home, mind you, that were going around collecting signs from fans who had written. I don't think the signs were inappropriate whatsoever.
Mhm.
They didn't have any kind of like cursing or anything like that. It was just fans um getting their feelings out to the players, the Houston Astros, who cheated. And the irony is that there's reps from the stadium going around stealing their signs. Get it?
That's
I
unbelievable.
know it's a little corny, but I
That's
thought that
so
was
funny
kind of
though.
funny that they were going around stealing people's signs. But all right, Jamie, I kept you on enough. I know I promised you I was going to keep you an hour. I want to thank you very much for being on the show again with me today. It was a lot of fun talking Rangers and Yankees. We're going to have to
Absolutely.
do this again very soon.
Yep.
Probably before the season starts, we'll talk Yankees again,
Yep.
and by that time, we'll get a bigger picture of where the Rangers will be as far as the
Yeah.
playoff contention is concerned. So
Very, very exciting to watch. And the Rangers got 3 games and 4 nights here. We got about 12 minutes left in the third period. Rangers are trying to get by Carey Price. He's been playing great.
what's the score, do you
Rangers,
know?
Rangers are down 2-1. They're knocking on the door. They got a power play. The Rangers are playing really well second half. They survived the first. So I think the Rangers hopefully can get one here. But they got 2 games against the Flyers. Big divisional matchups coming up. They got a game tomorrow, and then they have a home matinee on Sunday. So crucial games for the Rangers. So definitely tune into that.
All right, so
It's
the Rangers will probably end up making up those 3 games in hand on Columbus within the next few days. Then
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, these next 3 games, you have to figure you got to have 4 points. You got to do either 2 regulation ties or you take 2 out of 3. You got to get 4 points out of this. I think if the Rangers get 4 points, I think they're going to be in good shape.
all right, let's hope. I've got my fingers crossed, bud.
My
Let's
man,
go
good to talk
Rangers.
to you.
All right, dude. Have a good night. Thanks for being with me,
Too.
man. Take care.
You
Good
got it.
night. And that's it. You've watched myself and Jamie Barrett, Jamie Hollywood Barrett, on the Fancast Live podcast. Hope you guys have a good night. Hope you guys did enjoy the show. Post your comments below. Let me know what you thought. We talked a lot of Yankees and Rangers tonight, so I'm sure you Yankee and Ranger fans have a lot to say. So until the next time, guys, have a good night. Peace.